the meeting of the Ross Valley Sanitary District to order. Roll call, please.
Dan, me, Director me. Here. Director Donna. Here. Director Gaffney.
Here.
Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Boyce.
Yes, thank you. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have anybody here who's looking at the agenda item?
Justin. These with. Yeah, sorry, Dr. Management team.
Oh, no, no.
So I was gonna say thank you.
And that would be probably closing. It'd be item 8. Yeah. Would we like to move item 8 up to after the open time for fire? Yes. So moved. Justin. Second.
There's someone else, I don't know if he's here for an item. Are you here for an item?
No, I'm a guest of honors.
Okay.
You'll be next. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Yes, we did. Mike, I motion Mike second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 3 is open to the public to raise items not on the agenda or for future agendas. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes, and anybody wishing to address the board matters within the district jurisdiction, not on the agenda, they do so. Would anybody like to?
I have a few words. Just a quick introduction. I met Bob out on the streets. He had that wonderful T-shirt or the jersey, the wife's Michael. Sorry, I'm confused. I just got off a phone with someone else. He had the wife's clog pipes jersey. It's a great catch line, and I am a customer and a constituent of you guys. I live up in Kentfield, 30-year plus civil environmental, and mostly landfill. But I did work with the West County Wastewater District for many years, taking their solar dried sludge and giving them lots of leachate. So at some point in my career, I might end up trying to run for a board, sitting on a board, and this is very intriguing and a very intimate setting.
Could you say your name, sir?
Jeff Martin,
Oh, nice.
and I currently work for the owners of Marin Island, which is a very intriguing engineering opportunity. We pump all the water in and we pump all the sewage out across that 1930s causeway. And there's room for improvement, lots of gray water, lots of recycled opportunities out there. So thank you.
Well, we'll be in our new building at 111 and Anderson, which is the Comcast building, in a few months.
Michael told me about that.
Yes.
And I did briefly work for a company that I won't mention their name, that was involved in your old wastewater plant. And I am an expert in PCBs if anyone needs to know.
Well, thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Welcome. Nice to meet you guys. Meet you, Justin.
Okay, next would be item 8. Approve change orders 6, 7, and 8 in the amount of $520,000 and adopt resolution 23/16/42 approving final acceptance and completion for the fiscal year 22/23 gravel sewer improvements. With Wasatch.
Thank you, President Gaffney. I'll introduce the item. We also have Phil Benedetti attending remotely, our senior engineer. And we also have Justin Super here from SOMAS, who's construction manager for this project. What you're hearing, proposal to basically close out the project, issue a notice of completion, and the proposal to adopt 3 change orders as a part of the closing out of the project. And we did discuss this at length at the finance committee. And so I'll do a real brief overview. Staff views this project as very successful. It was completed well under the allotted contract time, even though it was a wet season of historic proportion. And so it's pretty remarkable how the project was. getting the rehabilitation of gravity sewers accomplished throughout our district service area. Principally in the neighborhoods of Kent, Woodlands, Green Bay, San Anselmo, and Sleepy Hollow at the San Anselmo border for areas of concentration and along Wolf Creek. This project was one of the first projects that were populated by the risk assessment based infrastructure asset management plan update, where we assigned every pipe and manhole and lift station in the district a risk-based score on its likelihood or consequence of failure. And the number one most risky asset was addressed in this project. It was the line that crosses Wolf Grade right at Sir Francis. And we were able to address that line, and the connecting line down Sir Francis Grade is one of many accomplishments in this project. It was a moratorium street, as you know, Sir Francis Drake was just paved. We managed to get this in large sewer installed without breaking any of the pavement, thanks to some skillful construction work by our contractor and construction management team. So that's just one example. We're really thrilled on all of these higher risk assets that were addressed through this project. I mentioned at the finance committee. Another example is Oak Avenue and near Laurel Grove, where we just had, to replace this sewer that had a lot of defects that were noted, a lot of void areas around the pipe where there was actually vermin that were taking up residence. It was serious. We were addressing that as a pipe. Well, we learned that it was crossing under a creek, and it was really a siphon that needed to be designed. And even though we had a change order that's in the balancing change order, we were able to install it and get a credit on that part of the project, even though we had to redesign it during the project. So we really were able to achieve a lot of efficiencies. Real quickly, 3 change orders that are part of the notice of completion. The first one, they're both about, the first 2 are over $200,000. And as described in the staff report, there was additional sewer lines adjacent to planned sewer lines that were added in the South Ridgewood area of Camp Woodlands, as well as along the Wolf Grade area. We noted some severe critical defects just upstream that we addressed through these change orders, and it totaled about almost $300,000 for the first one. Second one, we learned that there were utilities really close to one of the sewers we needed to replace, where we had big overflows a couple of years ago. These utilities were too close to the sewer to be able to do the pipe bursting, which is more cost effective and less pavement disruption. We had to do an open cut to make sure we didn't have problems with the utilities, the gas lines and that sort of thing. So it really amplified the amount of pavement restoration, because this is a moratorium street. And so that's why the second contract change order 7 is over $200,000, had to do with additional pavement restoration costs imposed by the counties. And then the third change order, number 8, is a net credit of only almost $2,000. But as is shown in attachment C, which is a very detailed report that Justin put together, detailing all of the changes in the different parts of the project throughout the district, table by table. I mentioned Oak Avenue, Wolf Grade, South Ridgewood, and Kent Woodlands. All these areas are, there was a balancing exercise done where, not all the clean outs or the lateral length or, the actual sewer main length wasn't precisely the same as what went out to bid. So we go through this process in a notice of completion. Every project, we balance out the actual length or the actual tonnage of pavement or all these things as a closeout exercise. And there's a lot that went into this, a lot of work that Justin did. And the net effect, which is shown on the table on board packet page 62, table 12 is a summary of all those little areas of the project And you notice on the right hand column of table 12, a lot of parentheses. The parentheses are a credit.
Yeah.
And then the amount of parentheses that added cost. So you see those all added down, end up in a net parentheses or credit of $1,800. But there's a lot that went into that number. I just wanted to draw the board's attention to that. So all in all, we are requesting additional authorization. As Bill put the staff report together, noted on the middle of board packet, page 51, the original estimate of this project, cost estimate and budget was 3.25 million. The low bid came in under 2 million, 1.9 million. So there was the additional work that you approved earlier this year in the San Anselmo area that we already talked about with the Pasadena Avenue, Santa Barbara, all that stuff. Those were previously approved change orders. Change orders total about $500,000. And all those change orders together bring us right up to the original budget. So instead of 1.25 miles of sewer, we got 1.88 miles of sewer. For the same cost. About 50% again, more sewer replaced. Thanks to some good work by Justin, Phil, contractor teams, paying attention to opportunities and efficiencies that would be doing as we implemented the project. So from a manager standpoint, very pleased to present this proposed notice of completion. And then I'd like to hand it off. Why don't I start with Justin? He's here, traveled to answer questions, tell stories about the project. But anything you'd like to pass along to the board about this proposed notice of completion?
Thank you, General Manager Moore. As Steve mentioned, this was an exceptionally successful project, just in the sense of the amount of pipeline that we completed this round in the time that we did it. Steve mentioned that, the historically wet winter, and contractor was working, essentially, I think they had like 6 weather days, which was pretty remarkable. They were out there throughout the thick and thin of it. And we did hit some very, critical deficiencies. Steve mentioned Pasadena. There were some of that section of pipe there, 300 or 400 feet, had numerous breaks in it, sections that were missing in the pipe, laterals that were just open to stormwater. So that was a great success on that side. He mentioned South Ridgewood. There again, we had exposed pipes and drainage ways that accounted for a lot of the pipe that we had replaced there. So overall, very successful. Before I pass it off to Phil, any other questions on the board?
Yeah, your monitor conservative management work is based on time, right? The project took a lot less time. Did your fee go down?
We were nearly half, or just around half of what our original estimate was on our CMP. So not reflected in the staff report, it was the cost savings that you realized for CM.
I hope Somas doesn't punish you.
Yeah. If we work on the next project, they'll probably get it.
Make sure that's for San Rafael.
Because we don't really do issues.
No, and you have asked about it before, as we consider construction manager contracts, and we have pointed out that it really does depend on things like contract time, in terms of whether the whole budget the CM proposes in their proposal, if they end up using it or if they need more. And so those projects that go on longer for whatever reasons, maybe supply chain reasons, that ends up then costing more through those type of professional services.
And unfortunately, when we come to the board for an amendment on a CM contract, because the project's running long, that's visible. When we get done early, not always as visible.
Right. So thanks for asking the question. So we can acknowledge that there were efficiencies in that. Phil, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Steve. I guess I can add, just my numbers for the project there, just to highlight, we completed that contract in I think it was 66% ish of the contract working days. So, we're looking at half the time. With increasing the length of pipe that was rehabbed by over 50%. And as Steve said, during the wettest winter in my memory, it's pretty incredible. And we owe a lot of that to Justin sitting right there, Glossage, and also the board for approving all of the changes that came through. It allowed us to act, remain agile in that whole process of discovering things underground, as we always do, and move through that whole construction period. That was, a huge benefit and provides us with that savings, just not in Justin's time, but also in our wear and tear on the communities that we're working in. So yeah, overall, I'm very pleased with it. And yeah, it's one that was so good. I don't have too many, crazy stories from it, but we just did a lot of pipe, a lot of, problematic areas that got fixed, and it's on to the next one. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Good work. Oh, no, there's no questions. I'll move that we approve contract change order number 6, 7, and 8 in the amount of $520,309.64. Adopt resolution number 23-1643, approving final acceptance and authorizing the general manager to file notice of completion for the fiscal year 22-23 gravity sewer improvements project with Glossage Engineering Incorporated, and to authorize release of the 5% retention at the end of the 35-day lien period.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, any comments from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Phil. Okay, let's move on to committee reports. Ad hoc Human Resources Committee.
We did not meet this past month. Oh, we met the previous month, right?
The previous.
Yeah, and we reviewed we reviewed the agenda item that's on tonight that reclassifies a position or two. Yes. Apologies, that was a long time ago. No, we didn't discuss it at the last meeting because it got tabled for this agenda due to union questions pertaining to it. But anyway, yes. And was that the only item on the ad hoc? Yes, okay. I think in minutes, but okay. The only substantive item, yeah. Yeah, I remember that one, but yes. Okay, so apologies, I didn't realize that was tonight's agenda. But we had an ad hoc Human Resources Committee meeting in the month of May, prior to our May board meeting.
And we postponed that.
And we'll discuss the item tonight.
The committee report from the Ad hoc Facilities Committee, Michael.
Tom and I, Steve and Felicia went over yesterday, and wow, it is so different. Such a short period of time. Pretty much all of the lighting is in. So when you walk into, let's say, Steve's office, the lights will be off, but it automatically senses that Steve has come in and turns on the lights.
Or somebody. Is it
Or
Steve?
something, whatever.
Just Steve.
Whatever office. And and it's quite amazing. I think it'll save a tremendous amount of energy over time. I think Paul is going on Friday to have a one-day seminar on how to operate the whole thing, and then he will cross-train other people to know how to work all of the lights in the whole thing and air conditioning and everything else. The entire ceiling is in. Most of the doors are in on all the offices, the carpeting is in.
Weren't there any?
Hmm?
Weren't there any doors there?
Yeah, there were doors, but they were not there.
Well, there were
Doors to the office.
doors to the existing offices, which they're the majority, and then doors to a few of the new offices had to be installed.
They're in. I looked in the new computer room from a guy who has wired many of the computer room looks gorgeous. It's actually a raised floor, which surprised me a bit. That looks good. The employee changing areas are looking really spectacular. We weren't able to go into the boardroom downstairs because they just epoxied the floor down there. And to do a water barrier just in case there was some kind of a problem. So we weren't able to go down there, but we looked through the windows and again, there it looks really quite fantastic.
Yeah, my comments are that I think the construction is really solid and it's, it's above average construction, but it's not gold plated. I mean, I think it's, appropriate for what we're doing. And everything looks really nice. We're gonna have a lot of room. I personally think it's the key to agencies annexing to us in the future. I think it's a 100-year building,
Easy, yeah.
So it's really cool and we're gonna love it. We won't be cramped like this. We'll probably have a nice place to sit.
Yeah, we're not complaining.
Yeah, so pretty soon, months or something. We'll be there. Finance committee, Marin.
Finance committee met yesterday and reviewed the financial related items tonight, including one we just had. And the budget, which we'll discuss tonight, and the monthly financials, everything looks to be in order and
Yes.
presented in a very readable manner. And as they'll tell us, the budget is designed to be submitted for an award for that kind of like readability.
And we can give it an award too, right?
But,
Because it's quite a document.
yes.
Also, it includes the planning for OPEB and our unfunded pension liability, where we'll discuss it more, but that's included too.
And it includes a long forecast,
And
longer forecast than we've ever had. Yeah.
CMSA.
It's tomorrow,
And Young.
but I'll tell you what we're it's on the agenda.
Okay, there were people. We all get the agenda?
You get it electronically.
You do. Do you want me to not?
Yeah, we just keep posting, but.
We're gonna look over the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25. We're gonna review the Marin County Civil Grand Jury Report, build more ADUs, a prescription to increase Marin's housing supply. And we'll talk about the National Association of Clean Water Agencies 5-year Platinum Peak Performance Award, meaning we did not violate anything for 5 years. And so that's they had a 12-year one, and then they had a 5-year one somewhere here. But this is great. So again, this agency, CMSA, is just doing great. We're really doing great work.
I heard that the 12
Now I'm on board.
peak performance award put in real, performance category. It was maybe Paul, do you know about that? I think it's for you.
Yeah, I was here. Oh, yeah, we will receive that.
I don't think, there's a lot of agencies that miss 1 or 2 or something. We rarely do.
It's hard to build up 12 years of, full compliance.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Especially with our wet weather, because
Yeah.
when the wet weather comes in, we still have the 85% removal for the solids. It's difficult because I dilute. Diluted, whatever they. North Bay watershed, or point directly links.
We met on June 2nd for 2 hours. We met at the Oro Community Center down near Piccoli Park. And the room was packed. And there was a guest presentation on the Delta wetland futures for marsh resilience and blue carbon in Sacramento, San Juan in Delta. Blue carbon is anything to do with water. That's all I know. So April Robinson and Lydia Smith on the San Francisco estuary gave findings on studies assessing how wetlands in the Delta can mitigate subsiding, sequester carbon, reduce GHG emissions, and provide resilient habitat for wetland species. The second speaker was Kate Hagerman from the Climate Adaptation and Resilience Plan from the city of San Rafael. And they did quite a study on sea level. And it's kind of scary, like their findings. So they're seeing in the Bay Area that probably San Rafael will be hit the worst. It's the most vulnerable. There's 12,000 people that live there in the canal, the disadvantaged community, and that there will be super high flooded areas. But this one is the worst. Plus the regional business parts, there's 12,000 jobs there, and they're going to hit really hard too. So they're all like kind of in shock and starting to run around, figuring out what they can do about it. And then we went on a walking tour after, which I'd never been out there. These levees are incredible, and the views of the San Francisco city are just to die for. And adjacent to this levee, other families, other people walking around, is an algae bloom pond, because some of the more well-to-do people wanted a water view right up their backs. Well, they got it, but they also got algae bloom. So that was interesting to see. I hadn't seen an algae bloom in quite a while. So, and it's really hard to get rid of in some places you never do. Anyway, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to item 5, verbal report by the manager.
Okay, thank you, President Gaffney. Just a couple of things today. As I mentioned last month, we planned a ribbon cutting ceremony. I think you may have received notice of that, so it's more official now. On Wednesday, July 19th, we scheduled it the same day as the board meeting, knowing that board members would likely be in town. We'll make sure you're able to join us and enjoy it if you like. It's optional. It'll be at 12 noon. We'll have a ceremony, and this will be a lot like what we did a few years ago at Pump Station 12, celebrating similar technology, with our odor control system. It's working really well there. It's right next to a middle school, so it's a highly sensitive receptor, as they say. And it's performing really well. And so we're so confident in its odor control that we're going to serve food right outside the pump. So knock on wood, everything will be working fine. But we'll have the opportunities like last time to do brief tours of the facility to see the work that was done. But we're also working on getting some easels and posters up. So because it's a celebration of being done with all of the accelerated capital projects of the cease and desist order that was handed down to the district back in 2013. So we're going to have a display of a map showing all of the work that has been completed and complying with the cease and desist order. And then some information on the technology about the odor control, and also noting that we are Small Collection System of the Year, CWA's award. I want to also feature that work that the district won this year. So it's a celebration of sorts. Look forward to having you there. And you invited their friends, this pump station is the largest pump station. So certainly we invited the city council members, staff, public works of the city of Larkspur to join us, and many others. So look forward to celebrating with you and staff at that time. Next, just FYI, we did appeal the MPDS permit from CMSA along with our JPA partner, so San Rafael Sanitation, Sanitary District Number 2, and ourselves appealed the permit. We didn't feel like we were given a very cogent response to our comments of not needing to be on that permit, since we're not responsible for the effluent limits. So what that does, it'll be just in abeyance, but it does keep the record consistent. 5 years ago, we also appealed and but we'll just go forward and comply with the reporting requirements, just like we did before. But we're just maintaining that record. Number 3. Just wanted to let you know we're pretty active right now in the engineering department. We have 3 projects out to bid right now. We have a pump station project. It's 3 lift stations with high priority. Basically replacing these old Gorman-Rupp pumps that cause a lot of maintenance headaches and replacing them with light pumps that are submersible. We've done this with other pump stations, and it'll create a lot of maintenance headaches going forward. And it was the highest risk stations that were identified in the IAMP work that we did the planning work. So that's out to bid. We're also going to do a little bit of force main work. There's these 2 asbestos cement pipe force mains that are in Riviera Circle area. They're really falling apart. So we pulled that in, put that as part of the project. So, get the whole package dealt with. Second project is the Woodland capacity and creek crossing projects. We spun that off of the project we just did the NOC for, the 22-23. Because there were some complicated permitting requirements and the CEQA requirements. So we split it off into its own project, and it's out to bid. So we expect to get that work done early in the fall. And then the third thing is the site improvements for 1111 Anderson. It's out to bid. That's for parking and security fencing and the outdoor improvements. So we should have an outdoor gathering spaces for employees and board members for our outdoor semi-annual celebrations. And then finally, my 4th thing is I heard a rumor. So it's unofficial, and we don't want to really, because the official unveiling of this award we applied for will be at the CASA conference. So unofficially, Ross Valley Sanitary District 1 organizational excellence award.
Good, I'll be there.
For the competency-based training. It's unofficial at this point. Thought you'd be happy.
So are we gonna have to make a video about stuff?
Yes. Yeah, we're in the process. We're getting that all lined up.
Not us.
We have
They'll handle it.
Oh, I don't have to make. No.
Yeah.
We have a meeting on Thursday next week with the videographer who the gentleman who helped us with that repair crew video that's on our website. Yeah, so we're meeting with him, and Paul, our O&M manager, who's keeping this competency-based training program going. Will be part of that, and so yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's
I assume it's a rumor from a good source. You wouldn't share before from this scurrilous source.
yeah, so
Great. It's like the Oscars. We're going to see this up in front. Yeah.
Don't you hear one woman screaming?
Good, yeah. That'll give things some flavor and
The downside of the NPD is CMSA for named on the permit, which the upside is it enables CMSA to not have to build facilities to reduce blending. They are really expensive.
Yep.
And for hardly any benefit.
Just $12 million was the number.
How does our inclusion make that case?
Well, the idea is they, for some reason, want us to stop blending. Even though we get platinum awards for the treatment process, they have something against blending.
Right.
And so instead of building facilities here and some work on the secondary clarifiers, I think was.
They're gonna replace two of them.
Okay, $12 million, and that was years ago.
Not years.
They have us on the other end trying to reduce.
Otherwise.
And see, we've been working on that.
Yeah.
Ever since I've been on the board. And I think the other agencies are too. Are going to.
That's interesting. I knew that's the reason we got
So
to
it's
the
kind of a
was because
trade-off.
we said, oh, we're doing all this work to reduce I&I, but I didn't realize there was a benefit that it changed the game about blending.
I think it did. I'm right on that, Michael.
That seems so. As long as you don't have climate change coming in effect. How much weather we're getting, and then it doesn't matter what we do.
But the additional capacity they were gonna provide would help on about 5 or 6 days.
Right.
And that's all, and just a little bit for those 5, not all of it.
So they haven't officially told us that this reducing I&I is a reason they're not requiring blending, but have they?
Yeah, it's, the rationale for including a collection system is very close to what you said, that the treatment plan has exhausted all feasible work to minimize blending, which bypassing a primary end around the secondary process, and then disinfecting at the end. And all effluent limits met, as you point out, full compliance. But it's a legal matter that some in the legal community, not all, believe there's a prohibition type of operation is a debated point. As you say, the permitting agency, the Regional Water Board, uses the rationale that since CMSA has exhausted all feasible alternatives, there's no other choice but to go upstream where the infiltration inflow happens and hold the entity accountable to reduce the infiltration inflow. But that's, as we all know, dollar per dollar, you can't equate that with flow reduction. We actually are a good case study for the region because of the accelerated capital program we implemented. We're a very good case study to look at what's possible and what's not possible in terms of infiltration and flow reduction vis-a-vis investment. So, the debate carries on. That's why I think it's helpful for us to respectfully appeal the decision because there's an assumption that it's a dollar for dollar reduction. You're like building clarifiers. You could reduce blending events if you build more capacity for secondary treatment. Very expensive, but you could do it. You can't necessarily equate equitably or in equivalent fashion, see that investment in the collection system and have a commensurate reduction in blending that you could with in treatment plant investment. So that's why, we want it to be technically defensible, and we think there's some questions.
Good. Okay, let's move on to item 7, consent calendar. Matters listed under this item are considered routine, will be enacted by one motion.
Does anybody have to for number 6?
But I missed it. Verbal reports by board members.
Do not.
No.
Now we go so.
No.
I'm good.
No.
Can I talk about it? Steve, go ahead. I just have this idea. I'll just be very brief. I'm concerned about septic tanks because I've had 3 on my block.
About what?
Septic tanks
Septic.
in Fairfax. One of which is leaking for years, with my dog rolling in it and I didn't know what it was. So Steve and I talked, it's a county, but we are together. It's a marriage with us on figuring out how do we get the word out, and Steve told me that it's actually up to the public. I'm trying to figure out a way we can help the community without getting into trouble, because they'll think maybe we're trying to push it and so I just wanted to bring up the idea and let it sort of sink.
And they're within
Like 400.
spitting distance of our pipes.
Yeah, and
Oh, yeah.
great point, Director Gaffney. 400 feet, right, is the rule of thumb, and it's actually the rule. There is
It might be more useful,
it's in our ordinance. And as I was telling Director Meggs, it's a valid point. You know, we've had some property owners approach us about connecting to the sewer. What are the rules for that? And the county health is the point agency for existing septic systems. And they're under permit with the county. And if they're not functioning, there is an enforcement program that the county administers. We're not the enforcement agency for that. And we corroborated with the county this year, made sure we had all the current contact information for folks. But we did corroborate that they are implementing ours and other sanitary district ordinances, you know, when they get building permits up for sites that have septic systems. They do a review of whether they're within 400 feet of sewer systems as a matter of course. So that's really in their purview. And then as Director Meggs alluded, we have the ability to assist members of the public that want to connect. And an example of that was about 18 years ago, the Canyon Road Assessment District that this board and staff at the time set up for interested parties in Fairfax that wanted to connect to the sewer system in a cost-effective manner. So instead of paying everything up front, set up a 20-year bond and making annual payments. That's an example of something that this board can set up if there's a demand for it. If there's some finding by the county that there's failing systems, if local residents band together and decide they want to cooperate and connect to the system, we can assist. But as you also alluded, Director Meggs, it isn't really normal for the district to go into a neighborhood and compel formation of a district connecting. So I think the first step is if there is evidence of failing system, to contact the county health department and hand that off to them and see where that leads in terms of what kind of corrective action gets underway.
Okay, so if anybody calls me, I say, call the county.
Yeah, it's failing.
Because I sent one of them to you, because she was.
Yeah, but you can always send them to our staff, Bill Benedetti or
Oh, where's Phil?
well, I think he's the but
She liked.
yeah, he's very helpful.
Yeah.
And we have made some connection, you know, we have issued some permits for new connections.
Just recent.
Yeah, recently.
How many didn't you tell us in a previous meeting, how many sewer, septic tank systems we have in the county or in our district?
Yeah, I can't tell you that number, but actually Director Meggs did some research. She contacted the town manager of Fairfax and they have 26.
Yeah.
Permitted septic systems in the town limit. That would be, I'm sure there are some outside town limits.
It's just,
You know, I kind of like Pamela's idea, you know, for a future item, we might look into providing super, you know, or failing septic tanks, like half of the something, you know, I don't want to discuss an just not on the agenda, but we, you know, we might say, gee, if it's a documented failing septic tanks, that's what we're in the business to clean up the water. I'll talk to you about it some more.
Why don't we put it on Peter agenda?
And put it on an agenda, yeah. Because I think that would be a good idea.
I'd like to know for our whole system, how many there are. And I want to know what you said county enforced it, well.
Well, that'll be on the future agenda.
Yeah.
It is county enforcement. That's the way it looks in the county.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll look into that. We'll look into the number of systems there.
Maybe some other housing.
Yeah, it turns out, you know, this is a statewide priority. The state water board approved hundreds of millions of dollars in septic and sewer conversion grants. And so there's application, you can apply for those. And this relates to some of the discussions we had about San Geronimo Valley and whether whether they want to convert, you know, 'cause that whole valley's in septic. But that would, you know, that state water board grant program would probably be more suited to a setting like that, where it'd be a larger system, if that was what was gonna be.
You know, we could, I've got another idea too, but. Let's move on to item 7, consent calendar. We have 3 items there. Anybody want to review any of them? Meeting minutes, the monthly financials, which are excellent. And the board attendance pass. Okay, so,
Consent calendar.
Second,
okay, I'm missing Doug.
I'll even get a sweater for weekends.
All, any further discussion?
We're moving the consent.
Any comments from the public? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. We've already done 8. Well, let's go to 9. Consideration of replacing the existing regular position of associate engineer with a second O&M superintendent and updating clerk of the board position to board clerk management analyst. And this is what you looked at. Next 6 months.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we did postpone this 1 month to give ourselves the opportunity, the chance to discuss some questions that came up from staff level. We had some meetings and came to the conclusion that we should go forward and ask the board to approve these changes, which dovetail in with the budget process, because the budget indicates the organizational chart. And we've already planned for this change. It doesn't have a huge impact financially. It's a slight increase going from an associate engineer position to a O&M superintendent. So we have those budget assumptions built into the proposed budget. So that's, you know, and then the clerk of the board position includes the management analyst specificity. We did do some work to be a little bit more explicit about the clerk's duties, based on, you know, our experience working with the very talented clerks that just moved on to Portland, Oregon. So we took the opportunity to be more specific in that job description. But you know, we do have Paul here, and Felicia, I want to hand off to you to cover any other details of the proposal. But it does dovetail with the budget, and we did make some changes to the O&M superintendent position. Then a change sheet that's been handed out to clarify that this is a manager position, not a line staff. So I want to hand off to Felicia, because she's been doing a great job managing the coordination with staffing.
Thank you, General Manager Moore. As Director Solomon mentioned a few minutes ago, the HR committee did review these 2 job descriptions in the May, prior to the May board meeting. And we've made a few changes since the HR committee has reviewed these 2 job descriptions. You'll see in the handout that Christina just circulated some additional red line underline for new language and red line cross out for the new language. Now, keep in mind, everything in red is new language in the job description for the O&M superintendent. But the underlines and cross outs are additional evidence to this section in the intervening time since we met with the HR committee about this O&M superintendent position. And likewise with the board clerk / management analyst position, when the HR committee reviewed that job description, in fact, we had only proposed changing the title simply and leaving the body of the job description intact. And then I had some more time to look at the job description. So I made some more edits. And that's why you'll see actually quite a few red lines in the job description. So many, in fact, that I attached a version of the job description without any red lines. Without those fractions to it. But you'll see, you know, that there is a focus on really the core board clerk duties, which I think were interestingly missing from the original job description. As well as what Steve just mentioned, wanting to include the fact that the position does take on additional responsibilities outside the board clerk responsibilities, such that the management analyst title is an appropriate addition, that classification. And also, as Steve mentioned, this is an important item to bring to the board tonight because it does have slight impact to the budget, only nominally, financially, but also more specifically with regards to the position allocation. We are transferring one position originally in the engineering department. We have 2 budgeted engineer positions in this district since I've been here. Only one of them has ever been filled since I've been here. And we've identified a need in the operations department. So we are recommending moving that position, which is an unrepresented position, from the engineering department to an unrepresented position in the operations department. And with that, I'm welcome any questions, maybe it's from Steve or not necessary, but you know, looking forward to having an additional body in the operations
Yes,
department.
definitely.
Yeah.
And if you look at the new job description, it's a little more detailed for management and overseeing of the electrical, mechanical, instrumentation of the pump stations and the facilities, which really we're hoping will lead into better in-house training and less reliability on electrical contractors, hopefully. And also better use of our CMMS and inventory and work orders and a full synopsis of everything coming together and really working as one.
Very good, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, that's an important point.
It
It's from the GM frame of reference, you know, having more in-house expertise on this critical infrastructure that we rely on 24/7, as opposed to relying on outside contractors. Seems like it's a sound strategy, from my perspective.
Have to meet, even confer with the union and.
We did, we
the
met
union
several
thought
times.
It was all good.
The union had some comments for us and we responded to those, yes.
Yeah, and I can see your, you know, edits here. More, you know, install the plan installation, things like that.
Right,
So,
oversee and manage.
yeah, management.
Yeah, thank you. President Gaffney, that's a very important point.
I'm not, I want, what is management analyst mean?
It is a very unique job classification specific to governing agencies. I've never heard of it outside of local government agency. Never heard of it in the public sector or in the nonprofit sector. What did I say? Should I say public? Yeah. The opposite. The opposite. Yes, exactly. The opposite of what I said. I've never heard of it in the private sector. It's specific to the public sector, and it means a generalist. It can be assigned to a specific department, but it tends to be a classification that is on a management track. It's somebody who can handle technical tasks as well as broader project management type work, and really somebody that you can throw just about anything at and they'll get it done.
That's interesting. Analyst does not sound like a generalist
Right.
to me at all. It sounds like the
Very
opposite,
much.
but anyway. Okay, got it. Yeah, thank you.
I mean,
That's what I'm not familiar with.
Why is this confidential?
Confidential just means that they handle confidential information, and therefore, again, more of a management executive position type of classification, not eligible for union representation. That's really what confidential means.
So management analyst is that's confidential in this whole thing.
It's a confidential classification, meaning that it's
High security clearance.
confidential information.
No documents going home.
I love
Don't
it.
put anything next to your foot about it.
It really also, you know, it relates to labor negotiations processes, and that person would be privy to management information during labor negotiations.
think of the clerk and the board, clerk supports the board processes. And it's in the loop, if you will, on confidential discussions at times.
Or any other questions from the public? No?
I was gonna move. I move we replace the existing budget position of associate engineer with the second O&M superintendent position and update the clerk of the board title to work with management west.
Second.
Is there another?
No, they're both in there.
Any
Move in second.
second, moved in second and further discussion, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Well,
right.
okay, item 10 is the fiscal year budget. 23-24 budget. Yes, don't you? Considering we're going to adopt it. Who's going to read us?
You're four to choose from.
Before you start, yesterday, Finance Committee, we handed out a CE, PPT account balance detail,
Yes,
and maybe Marin didn't get that.
yes, we have extras of those.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks. Direct reports. Okay, do we get started?
Yes, please.
I'll just gladly present the proposed budget for the next fiscal year, starting July 1st. And the picture is more transparent and optimistic than ever. You know, this budget, I believe, is an overall package, is a real improvement on past budgets as far as more detailed explanation of where our funds come from and where we're proposing to allocate them. And we've adopted a format that our finance supervisor, Cory Spray, has really championed to qualify us for a distinguished budget with the GFOA. It integrates strategic planning, it integrates performance metrics. But it also, the narrative is much more descriptive maybe than it past. That, you know, we've always been proud of the budgets. It worked well for our agency, but this is, we hope you feel it's a improvement. And we always, pursue improvement. It's one of our culture plans, behaviors, and so in all aspects of our operation. I would just say, from my perspective, I think we've taken a step forward. We hope we feel the same way. And look forward to going over some details. I think I'm more involved in the capital side as the sort of district engineer. So I'll point out that we've gone from 5-year planning to 10-year planning in this document. And really established a firm pay-as-you-go model. We don't anticipate having borrowed funds for the next 10 years. In terms of what our risk-based planning suggests that we need to invest in. It appears at this time that we're in sound condition to do what we have to do to keep the system capitally funded without having to borrow in the foreseeable future. That's the pay-go model that you board has directed us to seek going forward. And then this year we will do the rate study and establish sewer service charge rates for the next 5 years. So this is laying some important groundwork for what our assumptions would be for that exercise. We look forward to going into. I think we're going in strong. Have a good transparent package for you to consider. We took into account your comments from last month. We've made some changes, and we can go over that a little bit about what's different in the June proposed budget compared to the May draft budget. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But with that, and as we've talked about last month, the important strategy for dealing with unfunded liabilities, pension and OPEB are described in the document. And as you mentioned, we have a handout to explain some of the investments we made pension liabilities. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Felicia, our administrator, to assistant.
Thank you, General Manager Moore. So I'd like to first just recognize that this is a group effort to put this budget document together. Steve, as he mentioned, prepares the capital project budget and along with Bill Benedetti, Paul and his team have a lot of input also into the capital program as well as operational budget. And then, of course, Corey puts this whole darn thing together in an amazing way. So thank you very much, Corey. Yeah, hi there. And everybody who contributes to making this budget document eligible for a GFOA Distinguished Budget Award, which we're looking very much forward to submitting this year. And then the highlights of the budget document are this is a balanced budget that we're presenting to the board for adoption. And there are total revenues projected to be $38.9 million. We have our main revenue sources, sewer service charges of $27.5 million and property taxes of $9.8 million. Total expenditures are projected to be $41.7 million, which includes CMSA treatment costs of $9.2 million. Debt service costs of $6.7 million. Proposed capital improvement program expenditures of $12.3 million. O&M department expenditures, engineering and inspection department expenditures, and administrative services department expenditures of 8.2, 1.4, and 3.8 respectively. So we do have unassigned fund balance transfer proposed in of 2.9 million again to present a balanced budget through fiscal 24 budget year. As Steve mentioned, there are a few edits to the budget document in front of you from the May meeting, but not too many. The Finance Committee did review this document at length yesterday. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about one of the more important changes, which is the addition of narrative on pages 86 and 87 of the budget document, which is reported page number 184 and 185. So you may recall that in the draft budget that the board reviewed in May, these two pages were left blank, and our actuarial consultant from GovInvest, Ira Summer, came to the Finance Committee in May and also to the board of directors in May and made presentations at both those meetings. And the board made a decision to invest an additional $280,000 per year for the other post-employment benefit plan. And so we captured that for discussion and direction here in this narrative on page 87. $280,000 over the next 2 years, which is going to maintain the funding goal timeline of fully funding the other post-employment benefits by 2025. What wasn't quite as clear of a plan at that May meeting was the board's decision regarding pension funding. So we did ask in response to the board's request, Ira, to prepare several scenarios and see if we could come up with a proposal to bring back to the board. And Ira did prepare several scenarios based on future assumptions on inflation, payroll growth, and an expected rate of return. So based on 3 different sets of assumptions in conservative and optimistic scenarios, we had another quite lengthy pension funding plan that we're going to be yeah. So after he did this work and Corey and I met with him and we reviewed the additional scenarios that might be presented to the board, we thought it best to revisit the board's direction to invest into the $7 million that was directed by the board last year. And we've given you tonight a little handout of the SEP account balance detail that we can talk about. Now, mind you, the SEP account is the California Employers Pension Pre-Funding Trust. And I know you all know this. This is a trust account. It's a restricted account. It's for pre-funding with restricted pension liabilities. And this chart shows that the district has made several deposits over the last few years and made a few withdrawals as well. And then the withdrawals go from this account into CalPERS, right? And those are the monies that we transfer from the Section 115 into CalPERS, whether that's our unfunded actuarial liability or an additional contribution. I think in these cases, there are unfunded actuarial liabilities that we made. The punchline is, at the end of this fiscal year, we'll have $7.4 million in this pre-funding trust account. And what the board may also, yes, right there. What the board may also remember is that the district's unfunded actuarial liability, based on CalPERS's report that we received last month for plastic and pepper, was 8.1 million. So staff recommends that the board consider, rather than a predictive analysis for funding assumptions, to rely on CalPERS's unfunded actuarial liability calculation of $8.1 million. To consider that the board has already made a significant contribution to a Section 115 with the current balance or an expected balance in June of 2023 of $7.4 million, and consider our district's unfunded liability pre-funding of 91%. And the reason we think that this makes a good amount of sense is the uncertainty of the economic conditions and the fact that we do have this trust, and it's a good place to park our investment money until we know a little bit more about the future of the economic state of the economy. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions about that additional information that's included in the proposed final budget. And Corey is also available here to answer questions. I will.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I'm a little unclear on what you're suggesting we withdraw this year.
Thank you. Nothing. Yes, and the reason is the money set aside to make a future additional discretionary payment if the board chooses. But at this time, the district's recommending that at 91% pre-funded, yeah, that's darn near close to 100% funded.
Well, 91% pre-funded within when you include this 7.4 million.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. And we will make our required contributions for the year, and those are budgeted.
So what's key about this is that I looked at the GovInvest charts, based on predictions, and they didn't help me with the decision. What our decision in the future is going to be is CalPERS is going to tell us what our unfunded liability is. We're going to look at our combination of how much is in this set and how much the assets are, and decide what percentage we want to be each year. It's a much cleaner assumption instead of relying on those three assumptions that haven't panned out. And we were getting, we're going to make it in 5 years. I think it's going to change every year. And that's what our experience has been. We thought we funded it 100%. Did we get the news? Well, they got a value investment or something like that. Or if, for example, this year, our salaries increased by 5%, and the assumption at CalPERS is 2.5%. So why rely on these assumptions that none of us can guess anyway? Rather, just take a snapshot. Hey, we're 91%. Maybe next year we're going to spend some money and be 93%. That's the deal. That's an easy decision to figure out. And do we have the money to do it? You know, and I think 90%, 91% funding on your pension puts us in the 90 percentile brackets. Don't you think? I don't know for sure, but well, maybe Ira's got those numbers.
He probably does.
I think I can cover them out, but I think this is a real clean way to do it. And this year, we're going to stay. The staff is recommending let's stay at we're up to 91%. And we got what I think came into consideration was a huge capital program this year, $12 million.
That's right.
Well, so
We could make an additional $700,000 contribution to bring us up to 100% funding. But we'd be shorting ourselves in either our operating reserve fund or in our capital program.
and we shouldn't use the capital for this. No, that's not a capital item in my opinion. We go to the operating reserve and pull out $700,000. We could do it. But you know what happens towards the end of the year, our operating reserve runs down and down and down until we get our December payments. So I think that's, and I also think this table is a good addition to the budget next year.
Okay.
Don't you think? Or, you know, because it shows how much we paid and what happened to
Is
it.
this nowhere here?
It is not.
It should be.
You know,
Well, you know what I could offer up the board if you're interested is maybe another board item. If you'd like to present a little bit more information to the board on a regular basis of investment information.
yeah,
So that might be a separate board item.
okay.
The board could consider rather than in a budget, because this really is a statement. This is actually a bank statement.
We don't want to mess up our beautiful form.
Right.
Well,
Thank you,
that's
Greg.
one of this year.
And the information is summarized, you know, on
Right.
page 86.
Okay.
It's rolled up into the 91%.
Yeah.
There.
I have one question here. About the reserve, we took out, I'm not clear how much we took out of the reserve for this.
Well, the
From what, Pam? From 7 million? or-
That's what I'm asking. I have here something about 5 million from our reserve. Is that not correct?
I'm not sure where exactly you're looking.
No, these are my.
What page?
This is from the form. I went to the meeting yesterday and I know
Oh,
we
right.
talked about, there was so many from our reserve that we took out, but it wasn't. I thought it was 5 million, but that's what I'm asking.
We're making some payments from this fund balance.
It was here, $511. $511,200, right?
Right, I don't recall a 5
No, it's like
million.
170,000 two times.
So
It's here.
So was there an amount like from our reserve?
This is the withdrawal.
No,
No, that's an investment.
not that I can recall. Corey, can you recall a conversation about a withdrawal from a reserve?
Corey, on your chart, there's a 511,000 withdrawal in this.
Is that a payment?
That was a payment to CalPERS,
Yeah.
right?
Something.
So in the, so if you're looking at the SEP statement or the SEP summary table, that 500
The summary table, yeah.
Yeah.
the withdrawal, that is for payment of the UAL.
Right,
For the what?
for the UAL, for the unfunded actuarial liability. So CalPERS tells us every year how much we owe is the payment for.
And so we made a
UAL.
payment for that.
So we make a payment from the section
Right.
115 trust.
Okay, yeah.
But do you remember anything about a $5 million? Maybe you're talking about
Capital.
the.
I have capital.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
You're talking, I do now remember. You're talking about the unassigned fund balance transfer of 2.9 million into capital.
Is,
Yes,
okay, thank you.
yes. Got it, Corey, thank you.
Yeah, the 2.9 million is that actually we're reducing our capital reserve below our target.
Okay, and the 5 million is the target.
So these,
That's what I
Got it.
did not write that.
You got it.
these withdrawal dates, 3 times 170 is the 511.
Yes.
Hello.
These are the dates we need.
We are going to talk about your.
Yeah, it looks like it.
It is. Yeah, it's official.
That's correct.
That's-
3 times 170 is the 511. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, 51 divided by 370.
Actually, times 170,
That's what I-
170,400 times 3. Of the 511, so good.
That's right. I was right now.
But anyway, that's, I knew, right, you know, we've all done the numbers, but that's.
Budget.
All right. When Tom says that, you know, we're really plugged down in numbers.
Well, I was wondering, the comment is that we have a procedure, a rational procedure. Remember, we were having this discussion, you wanted to do a projection, but I was thinking that they wouldn't help. And I think it does, I like this procedure.
I get that.
But the staff is making a recommendation rather than showing us all the options.
Well, no, you don't, I was thinking like, maybe next year, the staff, what we might do is, gee, we were at 91 last year, and now we're at 87, so we could put this much in to get to 91, this much, this much, this much, and the board decides. And that's all we have to do.
I'd rather get 95 than 91.
Well,
Fair enough.
And I don't think we should be above 95 because it's always gonna move. You know, they're moving the goalpost up.
95 is just an imaginary number.
Right.
If we say, hey, let's fund it to 100% right now, next year it could be 89%,
Or it could be 110.
or it could be 110.
And 110 here actually won't help us because we can use the fund to make future payments. Exactly. Draw it down. But we'd like to have that problem.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I'd like it to be 95, you know, but we're moving it out of a reserve fund. So in essence, we got it. It's in our reserve, you know.
So we could make,
If you want.
board could make a yeah.
You know, you could make a motion right
That would
now.
be a
That would cost us
$300,000.
300,000. We did 280 for the OPEB. We would have to move 200,000 out of our operating.
Never operating, but I would move that.
But what does it buy us?
It buys us a 95%.
Bragging rights.
Which
Yeah. Well, that helps with credit ratings.
Yeah, but we're
It's not
not
just the regular, they don't recognize that. It's something real.
Well,
it's not gonna be looking for funds for 10 years. We got a good credit rating now. And given the uncertainty of the economy right now, 95 is a lovely number, but it's an imaginary number, and 91%, it still puts us way up in what everybody
It's
else.
also
is
an
doing.
imaginary number.
It's
So if we
imaginary.
move it
number.
from reserves, then we have to go find that money to put into the reserve someplace else.
Yeah,
What does it do to our reserve target?
you would be below your reserve target.
See, we're below our reserve target for capital because we've got a really extraordinary capital program this year, 12 million. So we could do it.
Absolutely.
And, but in essence, it's there anyway. Isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, well, you've got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I just have one. Why did you pick 91%?
Because that's what it worked out to be.
That's what it is now.
Because that's what it worked out to be. Because that's what we have
We're 5
in,
down in numbers here.
It's, we have 91% right now.
we have 91%, right?
And the question is that good enough, or do we want to try to, do we want to move something from the reserves?
So we moved already 2.9 million
Yes, we,
from the capital reserve. I have no idea if that's risky or not.
into the capital, project, program.
I don't think it's risky. I don't think it is. I think it's probably going to be difficult to spend 12.4 million, but that's our budget. And like this year, I did something else and then we spend the full amount.
Yeah, it was about the same,
Yeah,
and
so that's kind of more like a boat transfer. This would be the same thing, it'd be a book transfer, you can just pocket to that.
That's right. Yeah.
And you like the bragging rights.
I do.
Well, I like 91% bragging rights. Is there a second?
staff likes to.
Staff likes bragging rights.
What is the motion?
The motion was,
Move $377,000 and make it to be a 95% refunded.
300,
300.
yeah, just do a flat 300.
And the implications for that would be, we have to find $300,000, but to come get back to our reserve target next year.
Yeah, or you get right, you'd be under your reserve target appropriation.
How much is in the reserve target, the reserve right now?
12 something million.
Yeah, it's
very
50% of
high.
our operating, it's very high.
What's the reserve?
Well, that's our reserve, operating reserve, off the top of your head,
Uh,
82, page 82.
it's gotta be close to
Emergency reserve is targeted
18 million.
And then also, if we,
50% of budgeted operating.
next time we see a number, it'll be with new assumptions, so we don't even know that we'll get to 95.
We're gonna look at it every year.
If we move the money, we can say, well, we think we're at 95
We're at
now.
95 now,
And then the,
so the numbers change, we're at 95.
Yeah.
okay.
Just,
We're at 91 now.
Close your eyes.
Next year, we're not gonna be at 91. We could be at 95 now, and we'd be 4% higher, 3 or 4% higher next year.
Well, this budget, we're not, this year's budget, we're gonna go down, no, not up.
Oh, I know, I said if we did what your motion,
Right,
we would be 3% higher than we would do if we don't do it.
correct.
Committed operating reserve is, the target is 10,306,000.
And then we have emergency reserve too.
And we have that?
Yes.
Over to.
And our capital, what page are you on?
Page 84.
No, 94.
And so the next time we write up a beautiful budget, we would either have to replace that money or say that we're actually below our target reserve. So I don't want to have to write that. So what is that? I mean.
So we would make other adjustments in the budget. I mean, again,
For next year,
For
not
next
for
year.
this year. Okay.
See, we might, our operating fund funds a lot of capital. We make a transfer,
Right.
big transfer.
Oh, okay. So it's already gonna take a big,
So we could
Yeah.
lessen the capital next year, for example.
exactly right.
Build it back up. At 300,000.
Right,
but it also.
but the actual capital projects,
Need it.
we have them lined up,
it needs
you
it.
know, but we're actually in the next 2 years planning some significant investments.
And we don't think we're gonna realize other revenue from other sources in the next 12 months.
Well, are we,
I'm not predicting.
what about our property tax, projection? We usually conservative on
Yeah.
that,
We usually just exceed that.
but I think, Tony pointed out that, property sales have slowed down. So that means.
The interest rates.
Right, and we see any of this, with, we gained or lost.
Yeah, it's called fair market, yeah.
The fair value.
Fair value
the-
Change. So we lost money
In this,
in 22. But we picked most of it up.
oh, yeah, okay.
Well, I'm not here in a second,
Yep.
but we like
I'm
your
inclined to go with
idea,
the staff's recommendation, but
Yeah.
I don't have a strong feeling.
I just.
So I remember, right?
Doug,
But
I give you, you can say 90%. You like just a round number,
No, I don't.
or I give you
91.
permission.
I'm going to say 91.2, that always seems to be.
There you go.
you could go to 90.
Exactly, if you wanted a round number.
Every was 95.
I want 95.
I just mean what you tell them.
All right.
He said he wasn't gonna talk.
Anyway, you see what I like about this weekend, it's easy to discuss. It's not one of those.
We made a lot of progress.
Pardon me?
I said, we've made a lot of progress.
Yes.
Yes.
Any other comments on the budget? You know, once again, the capital pages with each project. You got fund forecasts, you know, going into the future. And then, I do kind of like having this table here that, or some modified version of it. I like it for next year. And
I like the 10-year CIP schedule.
yes. No need. And we did show the change in the engineering department funding, one less staff position.
That's right.
We moved into operations. Okay, any other discussion on the budget?
Just public, in case.
Public? Thank you. Okay,
I'd move.
you think it's on page 392.
We adopt, oh, yes, it is.
Somebody else take a move for.
I move we adopt
We adopt
resolution.
resolution 23-1644 to adopt the Ross Valley Sanitary District's fiscal year 23-24 final budget.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good job, everybody. Thank you.
No, really good job.
It's a joke.
Okay. Item 11. Consideration of adopting resolution 23-1645, including salary and benefit schedule for unrepresented employees. Yes, fool around with the benefits.
Yeah, I will hand this over to Alicia. I'll just note that this is an annual exercise, so unlike the representative of 5-year MOU, the salary and benefits resolution is revisited each year at the fiscal year. And there are a few changes in the document that we had a chance to discuss a little bit at the time. But we can maybe remind the board of some of the
Yes.
proposed changes besides the COLA.
Right, well, the COLA is the first and foremost item encapsulated in the attached resolution. That is under section 1, salary, and it is based on the San Francisco Bay Area urban CPI measured from April of the prior year to April of this year, which was 4.2% in 2023, and it's also based on the MOU document, which representative employees gives a COLA cap based on a COLA for a cap on the CPI for a ceiling, basically a 4% plus an additional 1% in this 5th year of the MOU. The board may remember last year it was plus 0.5%. And the 2 preceding years, it was plus 0.5%. In this final year, the 5-year MOU, it's ceiling or floor plus 1%. Confusing math. Yeah, sorry about that. So it's based on the COLA. The COLA is based on CPI with right consumer pricing index with a floor and a 2.5% and a cap of 4%. So if inflation was considerably over 4%, which in this case it was a little over 4%, so any more, if there's any greater than 4%, there's a ceiling of the maximum CPI. And then there's
Floor of 2.5 and it's
right, exactly. So that is what the proposed COLA is based on, and it's been the board's direction to give equal COLAs to unrepresented and represented staff. So hence that addition. There's a physical wellness reimbursement item, which is something that's always been included in the resolution. This is an expanded definition of the physical wellness reimbursement. The dollar amount hasn't changed. It's been $500 for the past several years. But the number of items that are reimbursable expenses that would fall under the physical wellness reimbursement benefit has been expanded, and that's discussed in the staff report. There's a new benefit called Preventive Care Incentive, which is in resolution section 9. The new program provides a payment of $50 for a preventive care activity up to 5 times a year for a maximum incentive amount of $250. And this new program is born of the idea that staff would be encouraged to get flu vaccinations, or in fact COVID vaccinations, or their eyes checked, or their hearing checked, or just general total physicals, and or contribute blood for the benefit of the community.
You know, people don't have to pay to go in blood.
No, and that's the point, is that this would be an incentive.
So they get an incentive.
Correct.
I thought it was,
No, it's not a reimbursable expense. None of these, for this particular item, none of these are things that generally cost an employee to receive. Flu vaccines are free.
I didn't want to get 250, not me, but somebody, but
You get $50 per event,
per event, okay,
up to 5 events per year.
okay, there it says.
And then the next few items, there were some edits to the administrative leave benefits in section 11 to conform to district practice for accruals and to comply with the compressive state tax doctrine. So effectively, you're required to do this by law. There's an additional, a new technology stipend, providing reimbursement of up to $50 per month to employees who use their personal cell phone devices for business purposes. The district does issue cell phones to some employees. Some employees use their personal cell phone. If you have an issue district phone, you're not eligible for reimbursement. If you use your personal phone, you would be eligible for the reimbursement. And lastly, the take-home vehicle section has been added to the resolution for the O&M superintendent, who is required to respond to after-hour calls for emergency service. And that concludes the report on the salary and benefits resolution by staff.
This is what your representative.
Yeah. That's why there's.
And did we get any money from the union for adding this to the?
This is the unrepresented staff, so this has not been discussed with the union at all.
But do represented staff get this too?
Not no, because the represented staff are under contract, under a 5-year contract.
Oh, okay.
And so when the 5-year contract comes open again, which is in June of 2024, so coming up, they might look at this resolution and say, hey, that looks good, you'd be interested.
They're not eligible for all the same benefits that we're reading back here?
No.
Oh, okay.
They're not.
That's understanding. Including the wellness benefits and such.
They're eligible for the wellness benefits as it's currently written in the personnel policy, which is a $500 reimbursement benefit for expenses that fall under that original definition for wellness reimbursement, which is specifically gym costs, pretty much only. There's really not much in the original language of the policy book. I think it also included, do you remember exactly diabetes treatments?
Oh, right.
Program. Yeah,
And they're also not represented or not currently eligible for the preventative care incentive.
they are not.
Okay.
They're probably gonna
I
have
didn't know.
that. Good.
Yeah, a couple, like the technology stipend, the take-home vehicle are mirrored after similar benefits that you offer in the management contract.
I see.
So You know, I can tell you about in my company, you know, who wants to carry 2 cell phones? And so, do you guys carry 2 cell phones?
No, but some people do. And that's important.
Okay, yeah, that's just. All right, take it.
Maybe Doug does.
Nope, that's fine. You guys work. So how does it, what, not that early, guys, but how do you determine, it says up to $50. You pay the bill or do you?
We get a copy of the bill.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
I have a question on the reimbursable expenses.
Yes.
Do you have designated costs for each one?
No, except for the wearable fitness tracker, we put a limit of up to $150 on that in order to be distinct, that the wearable fitness tracker is not the same as an Apple Watch. So we wouldn't be reimbursing people for purchases of an Apple Watch.
Gym memberships are a ton of money, especially in Marin, but just in general. So you don't
Up to
have,
500, right? Yeah, up to
$500.
500.
oh, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah. So you look, you're
Per item,
No.
annually.
for one for all, okay. Thank you.
And if you wanted to get an Apple, would it pay $150
Yes.
towards that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's kind of cool. Any other comments? Any comments in the public?
So we discussed this like this last month as well, right? Did you see a draft of it?
I think it was in April.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can update your employee relations. Committee.
Thank you. I think the HR committee
But you know-
is out of touch generally at this point because the items that we reviewed tonight were not the same as what we reviewed today.
Well,
But
this board might remember this was in a post.
You know, this,
Thank you.
yeah, we did this.
Yes, I remember us having like a conversation.
Actually, that wasn't the HR.
No,
It's
that's it.
And we heard your input during the closed session and provided a little more in the staff report,
You know, we've
really
always
just provide more specificity on what is and not allowed, you know, just really, so there's less vagueness.
Thank you.
So that this was in response to something.
I feel like if somebody wants to do the Iron person, the Iron Man, it's more power to them,
Yes.
but I understand. It's not a person.
You know, it's a little bit different than our policy though, because we've always said usually the represented employees get things and then we catch the unrepresented employees up. So this is different. We're moving ahead with the unrepresented. Right.
This is industry standard currently.
Trying to create this positive incentive, you know, a lot of agencies were reckoning with vaccination.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
You know, and so there was some more negative
Yeah.
incentive out there, but that this district didn't pursue. And so the discussions, you know, really that gravitated more toward what positive incentives can we provide for their workplaces, the probability of health related, you know, inefficiencies, let's say, are minimized somehow, you know, so this becomes kind of a workplace risk management strategy.
Yeah, that's true.
If somebody wanted to enter a 10K race, it's a $20 fee to register. Would that be covered under this?
No, it's not. Race marathon fee is non-reimbursable. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I.e. or E.G. Ironman.
Right to the top,
Okay.
right to the hardcore, no 100-miler.
And you saw that.
It was, if anybody wants to register for Ironman, have them call me.
So would you think that
Oh, you'll support it.
is the represented staff that want this telephone thing?
Representative staff all have
They have.
district issued.
Oh, they do?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yes.
Okay, any further comment on this?
No. I move we adopt resolution number 23-1645. Approving salary and benefit schedule for unrepresented employees in the district.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Move on to item 12, considering the business plan adoption the fiscal year 23-24 annual improvement plan.
All right, thank you, President Gaffney. You've moved up the business plan process another month this year. Normally, address this in July or August in the last few years as the fiscal year gets underway. We are moving it up a month because as part of the budget, distinguished budget award, by having a business plan that's adopted contemporaneously with the budget, presumably integrated, helps meet the strategic plan objective. We say budget. Hope that makes sense.
It does.
So that's why we're seeing it in June. But I want to acknowledge the business plan committee members, Jackie Legs and Dr. Kelly, that we met with on, I think it was May 30th or 31st, May 31st. And when the business plan committee meets, we go over last year's business plan line by line and the status of different elements. We call them objectives. Right now, Christine is passing out a change sheet as part of our internal staff review the business plan. I agreed to add something and I forgot to add that time of the agenda. So I'll explain that in red here. So the business plan process is an annual process where we specify objectives. They're like tasks or, just items that we want to address in the coming year that are linked to our strategic plan that the board adopted back in 2016. Strategic plan is based on universal down goal setting that is done under that for sound utility management. So it's not just wastewater, just any utilities and the type of categories, goal areas that make sense for any utility, such as customer service, enterprise resiliency, optimizing operations. And then in our case, we have the water resources and community sustainability. These are attributes of effective utility management that the board embraced years ago. And so what we do every year is we revisit specific objectives that implement these elements of the strategic plan. And we go over the list of commitments for the year and check off the ones that we've completed. We note those that we're still working on that still need to be completed. And then we add new objectives to implement our strategic plan overall. And so the way I've organized this year's staff report is pretty detailed. I tried to achieve some transparency here so that you have an idea of what's been addressed. We say what things have been completed or that we're taking out of the business plan for this year. And then the next section, at board packet 219 is what objectives were not completed but proposed to be continued. And then on board the next page, board packet 220, what objectives are proposed to be added under all of these attributes? Customer service, employee and leadership development, and so forth. So there's a lot of detail here. In the business plan committee, we go line by line and talk about why we want to take things off or want to add things. And it's really helpful for us. I point out in the staff report. And this is a way you can gauge the performance of your management. Me, Alicia, Paul, looking at this, you see who's responsible for certain areas and hold us to account, as the staff that report to you. And I should note that I worked with Courtney and came up with a new look for the business plan. We have we're using our branding colors, so it's the same content as far as policy level goals and attributes. And I also provide a little more specific, in the beginning, there's a little introduction page, just reminding you what I was telling you about strategic plan and how it fits into the annual business plan process. And what the things, through your strategic planning process, you identified as the most important attributes: customer service, stakeholder understanding and support, employee leadership development, enterprise resiliency, financial viability and sustainability, infrastructure stability, and product quality. You know, that's like export electricity or natural gas or sewage conveyance, and that's our thing. Operational optimization, and then sustainability. So all the things that we work on that we care about, like using recycled water, you know, it's finding ways in the community sustainability. So we're continuing that. What's new this year? We'll want to do some ribbon cutting ceremonies. We already talked about that. That'll be up out of the gates. And, you know, instead of specifically working on San Quentin Village annexation, I've made it more general, because we are actually working on a LAFCO project right now with SD2. We're going parcel by parcel and doing die testing to confirm which houses are in the Coromandera versus our system. And then we have a package of bringing LAFCO, and we're going to annex some properties and we're going to de-annex some properties. Something like there's like 12 properties or so that we have to switch around. So we'll continue to do these things. And if there is an annexation of San Quentin Village, you know, political will kind of comes about for that. Or there's even other lands that the gun range is not in our district, but there's a affordable housing proposal on that property. And so there will have to be some kind of annexation of that. So we're recommending the board on this subject area to be a little more generalized, and that we will move, you know, when it makes sense, keep them updated. But again, the village thing, there's been some complications. It'll happen in due time. So clearly, you know, under employee development, the updating the 5-year MOU with representative employees is a business plan item for this year. We want to emphasize opportunities for cross training, not only within the operation, but throughout our organization. And then, you know, moving through, there's some on resiliency of the enterprise, you know, that we're going to add a new generator at the part of the lift station project. We want to emphasize annual emergency operations training and spill response. And where did these come from? I actually did a pretty deep dive into the policy level goals and going back in time when we did the strategic plan before I was here, just to make sure we're covering all the things that we originally committed to. So when you look at this list of policy level goals on page 6, which is packet 229, you know, one of the first bullets there is develop effective emergency planning and preparation. Well, let's have a very specific objective that addresses that head on. That is, yes, you know, Paul is going to conduct the annual training. You know, and right now we're reviewing all of our pump station emergency response plans, so that when on-call staff has to, you know, bypass a pump station at midnight, they got something they pull right up on their phone and know where to hook up, you know, to do a bypass connection when it's dark, you know, and those kind of things. So we're getting it all lined up.
Who is JH?
Josh,
Bill.
yeah, there is a key at the end of page 15 or board package 230 has all of the yeah, so he's the operations superintendent. So anyway, each of these has a story, and I can go on.
It's like the use recent pump station inventory to develop a list of critical spare parts. That's huge. If something's going to break on a Saturday night at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, that's right. And so that was what, you know, I met with Paul and we talked about, you know, how this would implement these general goals and how it's an expectation that we need to be a little more systematic with our pump station infrastructure in terms of the specific inventory and the specific spare parts, because I'll tell you, you know, if something goes wrong, one of the first things the regulators ask is, did you have a spare part? You know, if you had a part fail, where's the spare part? And oh, gee, that's a good question. But this is more proactive.
I thought you were gonna say, Do you have an emergency plan?
That's,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's a good first.
I got a park, but no plan.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, good, yeah, and then we want to highlight another thing with the financial viability. We've got the 5-year sewer rate study. You know, it's clearly a business plan item for this coming year. With the 5-year rates coming to a close and having a good thorough analysis of what we need to sustain things. And our commitment. Some other. You know,
Do we have to modify the budget structure to be able to apply for the TFO?
yeah, you know,
Is that what we were doing?
yeah, you know, and it's an ongoing commitment. You know, we're doing that. I mean, you could say that's not a bad thing to bring up, you know, in terms of, gee, didn't we check that box already? Well, we haven't won the award yet.
Oh, I see.
So we're gonna give it a shot. Corey's not with us now, but you know, I think
No
we're gonna
rumors about
apply.
that award.
Right, and we're gonna include the business plan.
Yeah, we're gonna, if you're adopted,
Yeah.
and then that will be part of the package that we submit. So what I did, the reason why I put in here is it's something we're doing, and that's part of our annual review is like, what are we doing to implement these utility management attributes that we should be taking credit for, or otherwise hold ourselves to account to accomplish. So that's one example.
Ooh, 2-year budget cycle.
We'll look into it. CMSA does a 2-year budget.
Yeah.
And we're gonna consider it. We're not promising it, but that's what we can consider it. So we have top people.
Forecasting 10, might as well.
Right.
So we're gonna look into that. It could save us things. To create some. Yeah, you know, this with operational optimization, the point that Director Kelly brought up, you know, on page 11. You know, our Anderson facility, our new 11 Anderson facility, all of our commitments there fit into this. But then also this pump station asset inventory, it comes into play here. That for optimizing our operations, we still have some unfinished business to get our preventive maintenance in this agency automated. To really dial into the CMMS system. So instead of this being a memorized, you know, in somebody's head kind of thing, this is what we've always done. We have all the assets in the system and they crank out the predetermined manufacturer recommended preventive maintenance schedules. You know, and then we don't miss anything. But I think in honesty, right now, I feel like we got 70%. You know, that there's at least 30% of our assets that are carefully programmed in that, you know, might come back to haunt this kind of thing. You know, so this is really some cleanup. We're excellent now, or we're great now. We could be excellent, and that's what we're shooting. We think there's an opportunity for us to make it clear about record keeping. You know, we're doing so much capital work. We really want to make sure we're recording all this work accurately and filing important project related information that can be retrieved easily. We have other utilities, other cities that want information from us. We want to have that at our fingertips to give to them so that we don't have any utility conflicts. Planning pavement projects with us, you know, we do the best we can. We always can do better as far as working with other utilities. And so having an effective records system, it's good now. Again, we could really make some improvements and make it great. Those are some highlights. You know, in terms of what we got cut out and what you know, for the coming year, our priorities. And thank you. Yes. And so this is something. Oh yeah, I mentioned. We mentioned in the business breakfasts. You know, we want to really have these social events that are informal. Whether with fellow public works departments or contractors we work with to reinforce that, yes, if you lose some root wads or debris into the sewer system, call us. We'll come out for free and get it out of there. You know, don't feel bad because we're better off doing that than having a spill on the backside because somebody said something on the sewer. So we're going to look at business breakfast at the new facility, but I wanted this change sheet. We've got some new supervisors in this district. You know, folks have been have received promotions, or, you know, you mentioned Josh Hill, you know, he was hired this last year. He's been kind of a relatively new supervisor. And so we're gonna, as part of our employee development, commit to doing effective supervisory practice workshop for new and existing supervisors. This is something that we want to calendar and accomplish this year to get expectations set forth for effective supervising in our district. Performance evaluation, performance goals for employees. It even dovetails with our competency-based training program, which we are, it's a rumor, and we may receive an award for it. So, it all.
This is a public meeting. I think we're giving a lot of ways to it. We've heard it from a very good source.
Yeah, it was a good source.
Even though it's a public meeting.
So are you gonna bound this up like this?
Yeah, it is, yeah, it's, I'm sure it's bound worthy, yeah. Like, it's going to be, yeah, as an attachment to
To the budget.
the budget. That's the minutes provision.
Yes.
So, yeah, so if you make a motion, please have it include the change sheet so that we can get this other thing in there.
You're responsible for conducting the effective supervisory practice. Sorry,
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
I was thinking of it as a man thing, but.
Oh, no, it's actually an HR thing. Yeah.
Well, the recommendation, any further discussion and comments? Any comments from the public, or family members?
Looks great.
Thank you, Steve.
Making it sharp.
Do I have a motion?
I move we adopt the fiscal year 2023-24 business plan
As amended.
as amended. And it's good to Lord, that's it. But we got 3 seconds.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Right.
Thank you. Then let's move on to 13.
And Josh Hill, operations and maintenance specialist.
Consideration of authorizing the GM upon the adjustment of purchase agreement with municipal maintenance equipment for the total amount of $757,867.52 on a back on blah blah 1,522 cleaning truck.
It's a big, well, look, it's a Titan truck.
A big guy, yeah. So for a Titan, yeah.
Family truckster.
Yeah.
And that's a combination battery and flooded.
And our old one's 16 years old.
That's right, and so,
Currently in the shop.
I'm gonna have Paul Broomer, Josh Hill's supervisor.
Good evening, distinguished board member, for your time tonight. Yeah, so reviewing our fleet and some of the issues we've had through this heavy wet winter, we've designated this large VACON, which is 16 years old. For not replacement, but for additional vehicles. This additional vehicle will add in our reliability. The old unit has been down almost a month already, as is, for electrical issues, as well as a couple little engine things. So it's really kind of put us on the back burner. We've had to, it's required a rental from outside contractors. We've had to work with SV2 to borrow the unit for some standard flushing in the area. We ended up working with the city of San Rafael during the late night heavy rain. They came and helped us with their VACON because ours was shorting out due to electrical issues. So we really focused on this as a reliability issue for sanitary sewer overflows and just overall general maintenance. We have a lot. This is a larger truck, so it can do the workhorse of our trunk lines. 13-yard capacity, has a longer boom, which we require for some of the pump stations and the ARVs due to difficult areas. We've got to have a long reach to get out there and pick up the debris. Such as grip pits, ARVs. And yeah, out of the state, we, like to authorize the general manager if possible for approval for this vehicle.
Takes a year to build.
Yes, it does take a
So
year.
we have to order
As
it.
you noticed, the last one, we got it a month ago, so, and we ordered it July 1st of last year. So these vehicles are in high demand, long lead times, and we're hopeful it can be here within this budget cycle, but not promised. So that's what, and one other thing is that they are actually going to be doing a 5% price increase as of July 1st as well. So it's just going to get more expensive as we go. We're looking at another $50,000 if we wait until after July 1 to give them a commitment, basically.
Well, you said this was not part as a replacement, but if the other one's 16 years old, it's in the shop. Aren't we gonna dispose of it?
So the plan is to hopefully use this as a non-emergency unit and kind of release it to the pump station crew so that they can use it on the day-to-day. And then if we start having more mechanical issues with it, we will end up releasing it or surplusing it. But we did just have some electrical work done to it, so hopefully it's going to the engine of manufacturer Peterbilt tomorrow to hopefully get the injector issues done. And we feel like we can get another year and a half hopefully out of it or so. So we want to utilize it as best as we can and not be pulling the big unit away from the crews in the fields flushing and doing the work that we needs to do to go to the pump stations. So once this work is done, we can still utilize the old ones to do some small work, pump stations, like grip pits and a couple ARBs, while the flushing crew can do trunk lines and whatnot in the major, downtown areas.
So
Sorry, no interrupt. I just have a question that may relate to the scope of the motion. Your comment about the price goes up to July 1. I noticed that the quote was only good for 15 days and it was 4 months ago. Do we know that this quote is still?
They have
accurate?
honored this.
Okay, I just want to know if there needed to be squish in the motion or not.
No, they have honored this price.
Okay.
So what it says on their site is, this newest one versus their last model, 44% fuel savings, 43% decrease in vacuum system operating RPM, higher airflow,
Reading the
more
ad.
horsepower, and less noise.
Flush it.
Did better.
And we're not getting the available options. There was a couple of options.
Yeah, I mean, we can add it on if you would like, but it's a $70,000 add-on for more of electronic controls. It's more of the bells and whistles, right? So this option right here works as any of our other trucks that we have right now, with manual valves up front. The new one works off an electronic joystick and wireless, and it's got a lot of nice add-ons, but we feel the price, and then it also adds on to the lead time. They're harder to get, it's more wiring to do, it's more technology. And one thing with the technology,
wrong.
these trucks are out in the rain a lot. There's a lot of electrical equipment outside on the front of a vehicle. I feel it's more robust to be turn the valve on, push the lever, and move right along.
And for $250,000, you're gonna have our logos versus their logos.
Of course,
Yes.
Oh, wait.
it's any logo you would like, any logo you want.
So the budget document that you adopted does have this budgeted. It's actually first thing next fiscal year because of this long lead time. And so based on our experience with the small VACCON that was just delivered, it took pretty much 11 months before we got the vehicle delivered, and the payment was not due until the vehicle.
Of course
was
not.
delivered.
Not even the down payment.
No. So we think it's a fair assumption that we didn't have to budget it in this fiscal year's budget, but it is in the capital table for capital equipment the following fiscal year. And we'll keep keep tabs on it. If it comes sooner, we'll make sure you're in the loop on that. We can decide. But for the reasons you heard, you thought it made sense to get the order in, get something like a $40,000 benefit from getting it in before July 1st. And recognize a long time, a long period of time for the payment will actually be due.
And if you look, one last thing, if you look on page 240 of the board packet, this MME, municipal maintenance equipment or municipal maintenance equipment is also a member of the Sourcewell, which is a multi-agency statewide purchasing agreement. So we would be saving $90,000 right off the top by purchasing through a Sourcewell agreement as well, on top of not another 40,000 if we don't commit now.
Look at that tax. Yeah, it's
But
a lot of money.
yeah, exactly. Where do those taxes go anyway?
I've gone back and forth on this, I was trying to make the capital budget balance and everything, and I had this several years out, but we just had so much maintenance issues this last year. It just I haven't done a strict analysis on it, but it just feels like we're not spending so much money on maintenance. It makes sense to invest and get this more efficient.
Well, it takes so long to get it to, this truck is just gonna be more problems than the one that's had problems this past year. Right, and every time it goes down, it takes, people to drive it over to the, place to get it
Hayward,
serviced.
Leandro.
When do we spend on the last few repairs?
Thousands of dollars.
Yes, thousands of dollars. I'd
It's
say.
never more than it's never less than $5,000.
We had another
Where's
rain-filled year. So we need
Where's
to use it.
municipal maintenance?
They're actually in Florida.
And they're going to the office in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Sacramento?
Yeah, they're built in Florida and driven out.
Okay,
Which is a good test run for the job.
how can we maintain the parts of sewers without them naturally flush?
And so when you say dual, it's got half the tank is water and half the tank is empty?
Oh, what was the question? I'm sorry.
So you're flushing with water, but you're also sucking up.
So there's water tanks along the bottom of the chassis.
Mhm.
So that holds 1,500 gallons of water, and then the 13 cubic yards is actually empty
Yeah,
during that
Okay,
time.
that makes sense.
There is an option to fill the whole 13 cubic yard tank with water and just flush. So you could fill the whole back tank and just flush all day long on one trip.
And
Basically,
then you can use recycled water.
Yeah, you can load up.
then there's
Oh, it messes up
issues
the
with
track.
the pump and we could possibly use other options of recycled water, but I think the saline and some of the contaminants, the chlorine that's in the local recycled water kind of does a number on the pump.
So I'm sorry, so that's gonna make that no recycled water use.
Well, we could go to, if we were to use the back tank and use one good fill up, we could possibly talk to Las Colinas and fill up at the Marin Civic Center. Fill up 13 yards plus 1,500 gallons and flush all day on recycled water and then clean it out with the pump once at the end of the day with some fresh water.
They have a new recycle plant at Las Colinas.
Yeah.
I think it's 5 million gallons. I went to their ribbon cutting.
Yeah, so that's the closest connection is actually at the Marin Civic Center.
So it's a bit of a trek.
Yeah, but if
40
I'm not saying you're doing a dump, that's an operational decision you should make, but if you get people out all day long. It makes sense, it's not that far.
Yeah.
It's, there's 10 minutes away. I'm sorry, way address.
If we're doing some like a special project, like some real large diameter pipeline where we would have to use that much water all day like that, then maybe we could do a special trip. We can accommodate, I'm sure.
I'll make a motion. Authorize the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute purchase agreement with MME in the amount of $757,867.52 for VACCON Titan TAED 312-AE/51500 combination sewer cleaning truck.
I really helped you giving over.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
Any
Only
further
you read all the
discussion?
letters.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Let's move on to 14, information items, monthly overage metrics.
Yes, we're getting back to dry weather conditions, but interestingly, we're still a higher percentage of inflow. So it's an interesting dynamic where groundwater infiltration might be increasing our input areas in the other J280s. So interesting dynamic. Meeting our targets and you know, this year catching up on preventive line maintenance, we have we're only at 8. We're only close for the year, which is the lowest we've ever had. But I think part of that is a more concerted effort on cleaning. So that, you know, instead of 800,000 gallons a year, we're pushing 1 million gallons, and only at the end of April. There's a few more months to go. We're using more water, and part of that is recycled water. But in order to keep up with these clean schedules, if we can see, it's more like a third recycled water, 2/3 potable water. And yeah, so we did have one SSO this month with the line sag that was holding grease, and so that's going to be sag repaired as a corrective action on that.
But yeah, I have a question about that. So on page 15 of 18, it says one fill, 885 gallons, and then on the next page, it's got that plus others. So it's 280 and an 85. Is that fiscal year to date? Is that what it's saying? But
Fiscal year to date, that's was how it's going to say.
so this is the only fog. This is the only fog one we've had the fiscal year.
Yeah, that's purely fog. You know, fog can be part of other spills, but we only get to choose one. So some the debris is more of the dominant. You know, there's rock and stuff like that. We have to choose what the cause is. In this case, because of the sag and grease accumulation, we can say, yeah, this one is fog caused.
Where was it?
It was at the bridge over
So in Fairfax.
Fairfax. It's actually a suspended line over the bridge, and we're looking to do some corrective actions. It's the way it transfers between the suspension of the line and then dives into the footing of the bridge before it goes underground. So we're looking at ways just due to the creek bed, trying to get in there. It's about 25 feet above, you know, getting something stable in there to be able to get in there and correct it. And we've changed the cleaning frequency on that line now too, so that we're in there every 6 months of maintenance.
Which bridge in Fairfax, like going out to the
I'd have to look it up.
old Marin town?
I'll send you an email. I'll figure it out.
Okay.
I haven't.
Just,
How many, you know, we did this pipeline, do we have hundreds of holes in our pipes, so this is the system?
You do have hundreds of holes, yeah.
We're trying to reduce those.
Yeah, we're making a concerted effort, you know. I think you'll see in this year's annual metrics report, which doesn't come out in September or October, but We're tracking grade 5 defects throughout the system. And if you look at they're on this line, our annual metric report show that 2 years ago, we were around 1,500 defects that were severe, which are like K poles. And last year, we were down to 200. And so, there's a chance we might be getting close to zero.
You were down to 200.
Yeah.
Out of 15.
So, so we're, if you see that table in our annual metric report, you see a definite downward trend. And we address them through a combination of capital projects and in-house repair.
Okay.
So we're getting there, and it's not impossible, it just takes many years. And then new holes come up, we'll get a telephone utility horizontally directed drill a new conduit through a sewer. And then we'll find that, so that's a great buy,
That's a new hole.
Yeah, so
So you go in and cut their cradle, right?
we contact them and work with them. Be partner.
Okay, any further comments?
Thank you.
I see that in Fairfax. We've got a problem with your neighbors and their sewer lateral.
Meeting adjourned.